first speaker is Adonis Leo. He's going to be speaking on simultaneous observations of lightning processes from space and ground.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity having a very interesting colloquium. And okay, so now I'm going to talk about simultaneous observation of lightning process from space and ground. And we are going to start with a brief introduction about lightning. Okay, so essentially the main source of lightning on Earth is the clouds, the thunderclouds. Okay, and essentially we have two types of lightning: the intracloud lightning and the cloud-to-ground lightning. But about 25% of the flashes are cloud-to-ground, and we observe or we study most of the cloud-to-ground lightning because it's dangerous for human beings, for animals, for the society in general. And we can split the cloud-to-ground lightning in other 4 different types: the downward negative, upward negative, downward positive, and upward positive. So the upward lightning, they are very rare, they are not common, and the most common type of cloud-to-ground lightning is the downward negative. And that's why we know more about downward negative lightning. So the downward negative lightning, we can split in different lightning processes. We start with the preliminary breakdown, followed by the step leader, and then after the step leader, when the leader is very close to the ground, we have our upward leader that's going to connect with the stepping leader, and then we have the attachment process, and after that we have the flow of current between the cloud and the ground. This process can repeat many times, depends on the charge that we have in the cloud, the excess of charge in the cloud. Okay? So, lightning is the motion of charge between the atmosphere and the ground, or between 2 different clouds. So because of the motion of the charge, we produce electromagnetic waves. So we have charges that moving in time. So the charge moving time are going to produce or generate electromagnetic waves. And we can detect the electromagnetic waves in a big range of frequency that goes from radio to visible, and sometimes lightning can produce X-ray or gamma rays. Okay, so because of this very wide band of frequencies, we need different types of instruments to detect lightning. So we can use electric field antennas to detect lightning in the radio frequency. We can use, for example, LMA stations to detect the VHF of lightning. We can use photometers to detect lightning in the visible spectrum, and also high-speed cameras. And now we have satellites that are able to detect lightning also. Okay, we are going to talk about GLM, the Geostationary Lightning Mapper. And the Geostationary Lightning Mapper is a sensor on board GO16 and GO17 and 18. And that's able to detect lightning from space. Okay, so essentially the GLM is a high-speed camera that looks to the top of the thundercloud, and when a single pixel exceeds a threshold, we say that one lightning event happens. Okay, now we are going to talk about the results. How is the lightning observation from space compared to the lightning observation from ground? So the first result that I'm going to show here is a result using 3 different locations. One here in the United States, in New Mexico, one very close to Ecuador line in Brazil, and another one in the southwest of Brazil. So here we compare what should be the return stroke GLM detection efficiency. So we detect if our return strokes happen at the ground level, and we check if GLM detects the same event. Okay, we can see here that over the years we have a slightly increase in GLM detection efficiency for redoing strokes. They have updated some algorithms, and maybe because of that, or maybe it's because of the low number of samples that we have in the data set. So one interesting point here is that close to Ecuador line, as expected, we have very high detection efficiency for return strokes. We also compare how GLM observes positive versus negative return strokes. Okay, and most of the time, GLM detects return strokes of positive or return strokes that are moving positive charges across the atmosphere. One interesting thing about that is that GLM groups are related more to positive flashes than for negative flashes. So, on average, GLM detects about 16 groups for a single return stroke in positive lighting, and only 1.6 for return strokes in negative lighting. So that makes sense because in the literature we can find that positive flashes contains continued current. So in one of the observations, we could see a continued luminosity of 107 milliseconds, which is a very long continued current for lightning strikes. So that's important because, for example, lightning containing continued current can initiate fires in the forests, and also can cause more damage than lightning without continued current. And here is one example of a negative flash. So we can see only few GLM groups detection here for each return stroke. And for the positive one, we have a lot of GLM groups here. And now I show the new data that we have here in New Mexico, in which we combine LMA, electric field, and GLM. So here in the bottom, we have the GLM detection, and we can see that GLM is able, for example, to observe from space the preliminary breakdown or the initiation of the flash, also the leader and the return strokes, and a few lightning process that happens in the cloud but does not reach the ground. When we combine another instrument, for example, we can also combine photometer. We can see that GLM is not able to see a lot of process. So here in gray, we have the GLM detection only for the fourth return stroke, but we don't have GLM detection for the first, second, and third return stroke. So maybe this is related because of the beginning of the flash. We have sources at the bottom of the thundercloud, and maybe because of the scattering of light, the light cannot reach the GLM sensor. Here is another example, so in which we can see the detection of the preliminary breakdown stage of the flash and the return stroke here. So using the photometer, it's unique measurement because we can have the same wavelength that GLM works with, is the 777 at space and also at ground level. So we have not the same instrument, but the same wavelength detection from space and from ground, and we can model what is between the two sensors. So what is the future goals of this study? The first goal is how the clouds interfere on GLM detection. So now we have measurements at the ground level, we have measurements from space, and we can model what is between the two measurements. What is, how the cloud is going to affect the GLM detection. So based on these two measurements, we can try to model that. The second future goal is it's possible to identify different types of lighting from space. So right now we are working to extract GLM features and try to create a data set with different type of lighting and with different type of features. So we can feed machine learning models and teach the machine learning model to classify the different types of lighting observed for space. So we did this with electromagnetic waves, which is kind of easier because we have more features, but as we saw from space, we have very few features. So it's really hard to teach the machine learning model with very few features. And the third and the last feature goal is there a specific lighting process that are more likely to be detected from space? So in this presentation, I show you that we are more likely to detect positive flash from space than negative flash. So that's one thing that we figured out, but we can try, for example, to observe for space the so-called narrow bipolar pulses or K-chains and see if we are able to observe them from space or not. Thank you for all the contributions for this work, and we open for questions.